Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Iran and the United States prepare to hold a second round of high-stakes nuclear talks in Rome. Hopes for de-escalation mounted by threats. Amid the intensified fight against Islamist group, US plans to withdraw some 1,000 troops from Syria. Venezuelan migrants bid to halt deportation fail after US Supreme Court denies request to block the Trump administration's move. Turkey begins mass trials following protest over Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu's detention. Our top story, the United States and Iran are due to hold their second round of nuclear talks on Saturday in Rome. Hopes for de-escalation are being tempered by mounting military threats and mixed messages. On the eve of a second round of talks with the Trump administration, Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Iran believes reaching an agreement on its nuclear program with the United States is possible as long as Washington is realistic. As in last week, talks Iran told the United States that it was ready to accept some limits on its uranium enrichment, but needed watertight guarantees that President Trump would not again ditch a nuclear pact. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump said Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Trump has warned Iran of potential military action if no deal is reached, which Iran says is peaceful, but the West says is aimed at building an atomic bomb.
We are only engaged in indirect talks with the US side, and the reason for this is clear. Because of the threats by the US administration, because of the economic pressure by the US administration, and because of the maximum pressure regime that has been imposed on us, we cannot enter into direct negotiations with them. We have seen a certain level of seriousness in the first round of talks, and if they are ready to discuss the nuclear issue without involving other matters, then we can progress further towards a constructive dialogue.
I'm for stopping Iran, very simply, from having a nuclear weapon. They can't have a nuclear weapon. I want Iran to be great and prosperous and terrific. I stopped them once they were broke and they didn't have any money for Hamas. They didn't have any money for Hezbollah. There wouldn't have been an October 7th disaster. They were broke. They had no money, and they weren't spending it to terrorist organizations because they had none.
And during the talks with the Iranian counterpart, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov also said that Russia is ready to assist in any way acceptable to both Tehran and Washington.
We are ready to help and meditate, to play any role that will be helpful from the Iranian point of view and acceptable for the United States. We proceed from the fact that the only way to get an agreement, as the minister has just said, is to agree exclusively on nuclear issues.
Now, the Pentagon announced on Friday that the US will reduce its troop presence in Syria to under 1,000 in the coming months. American forces have operated there for years combating the Islamic State group, which once controlled large parts of Syria and Iraq. Though IS has been largely defeated, remnants remain active. Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell said the troops would be consolidated at unspecified sites in a deliberate and condition-based process. US Central Command will continue targeting IS fighters. President Donald Trump, critical of US involvement, reiterated his stance during Syria's political upheaval. The US previously had around 2,000 troops in Syria, up from 900 reported earlier. Iraq has also requested the end of coalition forces with full withdrawal set by 2026 in the Kurdistan region. A UN official on Friday said that efforts to revive international financial support for Syria will be discussed next week at the World Bank and IMF spring meetings. Abdullah Dardari of the UNDP confirmed a roundtable hosted by Saudi Arabia and the World Bank will take place alongside the Washington meetings. Saudi Arabia recently paid off $15 million in Syrian areas, enabling access to potential World Bank grants through the International Development Association. However, U.S. and Western sanctions remain a major hurdle. A high-level Syrian delegation will attend the meeting for the first time in 2 decades. Syria holds $563 million in IMF assets but needs U.S.-backed approval to access them. Meanwhile, UNDP received U.S. Treasury clearance to mobilize $50 million for power plant repairs, while the World Bank is exploring grants for Syria's infrastructure recovery.
There is a roundtable on Syria during the spring meetings, and we believe the agenda is open and sufficient to empower Syria. I think the Saudi step to pay the arrears, the $16 million arrears, Syrian arrears to the World Bank, will allow the bank now to release IDA funding. This is a big ticket item for Syria to negotiate with the World Bank. There's also the special drawing rights at the IMF. Again, that's a big ticket item, in addition to all the policy and technical assistance that the bank and the fund can provide Syria.
Lawyers for Venezuelan migrants detained in Texas asked the U.S. Supreme Court on Friday to block what they described as imminent deportations ordered by the Trump administration. The American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, said dozens held at the Blue Bonnet detention facility were classified as gang members and marked for removal without proper judicial review, violating a recent Supreme Court mandate. Last week, the court ruled 5-4 that such deportations under the 1798 Alien Enemies Act could proceed, but only if detainees were first given timely notice and the chance to seek habeas corpus relief. The ACLU, after failed appeals in lower courts, rushed to the Supreme Court, warning that some men were already on buses. The move could spark a constitutional clash over executive compliance with judicial rulings. Democratic U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen met with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Salvadoran man mistakenly reported and being held in a prison in El Salvador at a hotel after initial requests to meet with him were denied. The U.S. Supreme Court has directed the administration of the President Donald Trump to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return after Washington acknowledged he was deported because of an administrative error.
That people understand this case is not just about one man. It's about protecting the constitutional rights of everybody who resides in the United States of America. Now, the Trump administration wants to flat out lie about what this case is about. They want to change the subject. They want to make it about something else. And they are flouting the orders from the Federal District Court, the Fourth Circuit Court, and the Supreme Court to facilitate his return.
Abrego Garcia's lawyers said that he has never been charged with nor convicted of any crime and denied the Justice Department's accusation that he belongs to the criminal gang MS-13. But the government has given no indication it plans to seek his return and said it had no authority to release a man from a foreign prison, raising the potential for a constitutional conflict should Trump defy the highest court. Dozens of people, including students and journalists, arrested over Turkey's biggest protest in more than a decade, opened in Istanbul on Friday. Some 189 people, including journalists, students and activists, were on trials across 2 overflowing courtrooms in Istanbul's Kaklayan Justice Palace, one of the city's main courts. Demonstrators gather amid a heavy police presence outside an Istanbul courthouse and were arrested while demonstrating against the March 19 detention and subsequent jailing of Ekrem İmamoğlu. The suspects are facing a number of charges, notably taking part in illegal rallies and marches and failing to disperse despite police warnings. İmamoğlu was arrested on March 19 and jailed days later on corruption charges. His imprisonment has been widely viewed as politically motivated and sparked nationwide protest. The White House on Friday unveiled a redesigned COVID government website promoting the lab leak theory as the true origin of the virus, spotlighting President Donald Trump and criticizing pandemic responses under former President Joe Biden. The updated site targets former Chief Medical Advisor Anthony Fauci for endorsing natural origin theories and presents arguments linking the outbreak to Wuhan's SARS research lab. While the lab leak theory was once dismissed, US agencies like the FBI and Department of Energy now support it to varying degrees. China has rejected the claims and urged the US to stop politicizing the issue. The revamped website also attacks early pandemic measures like masking and social distancing and accuses officials of suppressing alternative treatments. The launch follows mass layoffs in health agencies amid a controversial restructuring led by Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. The resort city of Anapa on Russia's Black Sea coast continues cleaning its beaches following a massive oil spill in December. The spill led Moscow's consumer watchdog to warn holidaymakers about unsafe conditions at the popular seaside destination. As the summer tourist season approaches, local authorities and environmental teams are working hard to restore the area's beaches to ensure safety for visitors. Yellow fever vaccinations are being administered at Salitaire bus station at El Dorado Airport in Bogota, the Colombian capital, after a deadly outbreak led the government to declare a health emergency. The outbreak, according to an official statement, has claimed 34 lives so far. Authorities are ramping up efforts to safeguard residents and travelers as concerns over the disease's spread continue to grow. The traditional Holy Week procession is in full swing in central Mexico, with over 1,000 Seones gracing the streets of Tetela del Volcan. Seones, whose origins date back 300 years, are pivotal characters in the Holy Week celebrations. Their costumes, rich in symbolism and craftsmanship, are a visual spectacle. Nearly 200 artists from Argentina, Peru and Bolivia turned Oruro's dunes into stunning Easter sand sculptures on Good Friday. They recreated biblical scenes marking Jesus' journey from condemnation to burial. This 19th annual festival, celebrating faith and artistry, drew large crowds to marvel at the masterpieces leading up to Easter Sunday's joyous celebrations. Still to come on this edition of DD India Live. West Bengal Governor C.V. Anand Bose visits Malda to meet the Murshidabad riot-affected victims. And 50 years since the launch of Aryabhata, half a century has passed since India successfully launched its first satellite. And Barca coach Hansi Flick unhappy with La Liga kick-off timings.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked, we just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Prime Minister Narendra Modi engaged in a constructive conversation on Friday with American tech billionaire Elon Musk, delving into a range of issues of mutual interest. The discussion revisited topics covered during their meeting in Washington, D.C. earlier this year, underscoring the shared vision for technological advancement. Prime Minister highlighted the immense potential for collaboration between India and the United States in the domains of technology and innovation. PM Modi reaffirmed India's steadfast commitment to advancing partnerships in these areas. And at the heart of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's towering persona lies his spiritual strength, which along with his purity of thought and transparency of conduct has elevated India's stature on the global stage. This was stated by Juna Pithadishwar Acharya Mahamandaleshwar Swami Avdesh Anand Giri Maharaj at the launch of 5th chapter of the book Sanskriti Ka Panchwa Adhyay, which is a compilation of the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's speeches on culture. The event took place at the Indira Gandhi National Centre for the Arts, Indian Parliament's upper house. The Rajya Sabha Deputy Chairman Harivansh, IGNCA Chairman Ram Bahadur Rai and Secretary Dr. Sachidanand Joshi were also present on the occasion. Addressing the gathering, Swami Avdesh Nandgiri Maharaj credited Prime Minister Modi for the revival of India's Sanatan culture on the global stage. In West Bengal, Governor C.V. Anand Bose on Friday visited Malda to meet the Murshidabad riot-affected victims who had to flee the district after violent clashes occurred during the anti-Waqf law protests last week. Assuring proactive action, Bose said he had a detailed discussion with the victims in the camp where they have been staying as a temporary arrangement. Also, a team from the National Human Rights Commission and National Commission for Women visited the relief camp. The delegation reviewed the condition of those who were affected by the violence. Meanwhile, the West Bengal government on Thursday submitted a report before the Calcutta High Court and claimed that the law and order situation in violence-hit Murshidabad district was under control. And Dr. L. Murugan, India's Minister for State of Information and Broadcasting, conducted a comprehensive review of the ongoing preparations for the highly anticipated World Audiovisual and Entertainment Summit set to take place from May 1st to 4 this year in Mumbai. The visit underscored the government's commitment to ensuring the summit a significant platform for fostering innovation and collaboration in the global media and entertainment industries, executed with precision and grandeur. Dr. Murugan began his assessment with an extensive tour of different spots of the Geo World Centre in Mumbai, where various sessions would be held. After that, he convened a high-level meeting with the heads of various departments and agencies involved in the summit's organization. A living tapestry of Northeast India's floral beauty, culture and biodiversity is the Kaziranga National Orchid and Biodiversity Park. The idea was not only to preserve the diverse species of flora and fauna, but to educate the public about the significance of these orchids. DD India's Momita Biswas reports.
Assam is famous for its tea, petroleum and one-horned rhino. But do you know Assam is also famous for its different types of wild orchids? And currently we are at a place where more than 2,000 varieties of orchids are found. So let's have a check. Orchid Park in Kaziranga, located in the northeastern states of Assam, India, is a fascinating blending of nature's beauty and cultural significance. Kaziranga, already renowned for its rich wildlife and the iconic one-horned rhinoceros, is also a home to a diverse range of flora and fauna. However, what many people didn't know was the reason is a treasure trove of orchids.
Here we have been 2,000 species of orchids, so mostly collection from Northeast, because nowadays people, they don't know so many wild species found in our nature, no? Even Northeast, even India. So these are complete natural wild orchids. Even our state flower also orchids, see this flower. So this is the state flower of Assam, foxtail orchid. So Assam is found is all purple.
As you have explained me earlier, which is the smallest, you can explain
this one. See this plant. Actually, this blooming season is gone. So this once in a bloom, 3 to 4 times they can bloom once in a year. So when it's bloomed, this flower size is only 1.2 mm. Actually, Assam found in 400 species of orchids, in Northeast 900, in India 1500, and all over the world 25,000 to 35,000 species of orchid. So out of India, 90% orchid found in Northeast. But orchids are day by day going to extinct, deforestation, loss of habitat, pollution and lack of awareness. That's why here we're trying to preserve wild orchids.
The idea was not only to preserve the diverse species, but to educate the public about the significance of these orchids, which play a vital role in the ecosystem.
For those who visit Kaziranga, a must stop at the Biodiversity Orchid Park is very necessary, because to witness the world of hidden gem of
orchid, which coexist with the wildlife, with the iconic wildlife of Kaziranga. With camera person Manav, this is Momita Viswas for Did India.
On April 19, 1975, India launched its first satellite Aryabhata from Russia. Built indigenously, it marked India's bold entry into the space age. It's been 50 years now. Did India's Tapas Bhattacharya reports.
April 19th, 1975. India looked to the skies and took flight. From the launch site in Russia, a satellite born of Indian minds pierced the stratosphere. Aryabhata, India's first satellite, designed and built on Indian soil, launched by a Soviet rocket, but fueled by Indian dreams. It wasn't just metal and circuits, it was a symbol of ambitions, of resilience, of the audacity to dream boldly and fearlessly. Weighing just 360 kilograms, a 26-sided polygon barely 1.4 meters wide, yet it carried the weight of 1 billion hopes. With that single launch, India became the 11th nation and only the second developing country to place a satellite in orbit. Aryabhata didn't just orbit the Earth, it ignited a revolution, one that would blaze a trail to the moon, to Mars and beyond. It all began with a single satellite and an unshakable dream. Tapas Bhattacharya's report, DD India.
And the price of gold in Nepal has extended its upward trajectory, reaching a new all-time high in the domestic market. The price of fine gold was surged by Rs 3,600 on Thursday alone, setting a fresh record at Rs 1,90,600 per tola. This represents a sharp increase from the earlier rate of 187,000 per tola, surpassing the previous high record on Thursday. With high gold price and high making charges in gold jewellery, along with addition of gold loss during jewellery making that is levied on customers, the gold market in Nepal has lost appeal among customers. Sports now. Holger Rune ended Casper Ruud's title defence at the Barcelona Open with a 6-4, 6-2 win over the defending champion in the quarterfinals on Friday. World number 13, Rune broke Ruud twice in each set as he beat the 10th ranked Norwegian for the only second time in 8 attempts. The Dane will face Karen Khachanov in the semi-finals after the Russian overcame Spain's Alejandro Davidovich Fokina 6-4, 7-5. And Barcelona coach Hansi Flick complained about the timing of their next La Liga match against Celta Vigo as he wanted to give his players some more rest. Barcelona player Celta Vigo on Saturday, but Flick questioned the league for not scheduling the game later in the day instead of an early kickoff. Flick said players need more time to rest as they arrive back in Barcelona very late from away games in Europe. Barcelona advanced to the semi-finals of the Champions League, while they also face Real Madrid in the Copa del Rey final later this month. Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India Live, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.